Yeah, yeah. We just chillin' and vibing. Good conversations with good people. Oh, good conversations with good people. Yeah, yeah.
Yo, 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 this your boy Larry, and I'm chilling and vibing with Carla. What's going on,
Yes,
girl?
I'm chilling and vibing.
Hey, I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is a real honor. And actually, this is my first podcast where I am being interviewed instead of interviewing. So I'm really excited and a little nervous, actually.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I see you out here putting that work in, man. And, being a podcaster myself, I see your work and they getting noticed. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. Thank you very much, Larry.
So, where you from?
I was born in Poland and I went to schools in London, and then I moved to Brooklyn. So when I don't feel like telling my life story, I just tell people I'm from Brooklyn, but technically I am not. um, yeah, I lived in London for 8 years and moved to New York 13 years ago. So I guess I could call myself a New Yorker, but I'm just, a Polish bitch living in New York City.
So, like, how was that transition moving from London to New York?
It was fine. I have been on my own since I was like 18. So I'm like, I'm 38 now. So for the last 20 years, I've always been on my own. So I know how to hustle, I know how to take care of myself. And because both London and New York are big cities and big busy cities, I guess the transition wasn't too crazy, but at the same time it definitely took a solid few years for me to settle and to get my shit together. I had like no money at the beginning. I remember, I think I came to New York with like $200 in my pocket, like a typical immigrant story, you know what I mean? So it definitely took a long time to find some sort of stability, but culturally speaking, I didn't find it challenging. Matter of fact, I preferred it to London. London is more, to me, clicky. Like it's harder to people are very snobby. You have like, British people who hang out with themselves, and then you've got the rest. And there's a lot of immigrants in London, or where at the time, from like Poland and other Eastern European countries. So we were not that much liked over there, unfortunately.
Have you visited London since you moved over here?
I have not. I have not. It's hopefully, it will happen soon. But I have not been there since I moved here. So I came here in 2012. So yeah, it's been a minute.
So, like, who inspires you to want to do your own podcast?
That's a great question. Um I have written a novel that I titled Duchess and Her Dukes, and we can get into the name a little bit later. And my logic was, let me build a platform where I can actually like start growing audience for my future book. Once it's published, I will have, enough people who probably or hopefully will buy the book. So I figured, okay, what's the best way to go about it? Let me do a podcast. And I actually started a podcast, or recorded multiple episodes, but just audio, back in 2018. But it's a super long story that never happened in the end. My friend, unfortunately, passed away. Friend who was supposed to edit it, so it's like couldn't even think about doing a podcast because of that. And then fast forward to 2024, I was like, fuck it, let me just try. I love talking to people. I love artists, I love hustlers like myself, people who pursue their dreams while simultaneously working one, two, three jobs, because that's New York City for you. So that was the idea. My I guess, my interpersonal skills match like a good podcast, because I do love talking to people, but the primary goal was to build audience for my book and also inspire, I suppose.
So, like, how did you came up with the name?
Okay, cool. Great question. So the main character of my novel, her name is Duchess, but spelled Dutch as opposed to Duch, right? So that comes from the word Dutch, like Dutch papers. That's the type of papers you would use to roll a blunt. And she smokes a lot of blunts in the novel, hence why her name is Duchess. And her dukes, meaning a lot of guys she encounters in the novel. And novel takes place during the pandemic in New York City. So there's a lot of strange adventures that she goes on and like crazy dates and parties. So sort of like not what you would expect from a pandemic at all. So that's the name. And I figured that would use the same name for my podcast for the same reasons that I mentioned earlier. And I intentionally wanted to interview people who may resemble some of the characters from my novel or people who literally inspired some characters in my novel. So, for example, if you look at my first episode from last year with Crosby Clocks, that kid who's from also the Lower East Side, New York City, he there's a character totally based on him in my novel, so I interviewed him first. And I thought that's what I would be doing. However, uh, I recorded my first four episodes at this trap music studio in Brooklyn. And because of the location and because of the producer that I became friends with, it sort of like expanded, and all of a sudden, all these rappers wanted to get on my podcast. And because I am a huge rap and trap lover, it worked out. And now I'm like in this completely different realm. Now I manage an artist. It's like last year was crazy in the best way possible. I think this year is going to be even better.
So, being that you like trap music, who your favorite trap artist?
Ah, that's a hard one. Currently like really vibing to Busy Bangs, who is from Brooklyn. Um, from like like really mainstream. I mean, he's obviously famous also, but like not as famous as let's say 21 or yeah, like Young Thug. I guess yeah, you could call that trap too. I feel like the lines are blurry sometimes. Um, but ah, I love I love Chief Keef, honestly. I love G Herbo a lot. I love Money Man. He's I guess like him and Nardo Wick are the sexiest, I feel like, in terms of their voices and how they their flow is. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So but there's like so many. I should totally share my playlist with you so you can take a look at what I listen to or take a listen.
I'm surprised you didn't say Gucci. Brr.
I used to listen to Gucci when I was younger, but yeah, I still fuck with Gucci. I just haven't actually listened to Gucci in a minute. Who's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Trap. Uh, I'm gonna say Future.
Oh yeah. He's just like it's funny you mentioned Future because even though I told you all those other names, when you know how Apple Music or Spotify or whatever tells you like the number who were you listening to the most last year? Future was my number one. I'm like, how? Because he dropped like two double albums in 2020, 2024. So it's like he's unbelievable. Yeah. He's like a god. Like maybe that's why I didn't even mention him because it's like he's so amazing.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like both albums went was dope. Both of them.
Both of them. Both of
They
them.
don't trust you, and then they still don't trust you. I mean,
That
we don't
song
trust you.
that song Fried is so cool. Like so sexy. Like the shorty, she's a vibe. Oh, she's a vibe. Perfect for the podcast. Shorty, she a vibe. Oh man, this is awesome. I'm so glad you asked me because like I always talk to rappers, but nobody asks me about music. Yeah,
So what's one thing you have learned since being a podcaster?
that's an amazing question. I think um one of the biggest lessons in general that I've been trying to learn all my life is to slow down occasionally, like to slow down and before you answer people, and I'm talking more about like production more than the interviews themselves. I think pausing and not agreeing to shit right away is a big one. Like really reevaluating and strategizing better instead of rushing. At the same time, like because I'm very like I work and think fast. That's how I get shit done. But at the same time, I think it's important to like slow down and not trust people, not trust people too soon. And that's something that I've learned the hard way this past year. Had a couple of falling outs, nothing huge, no big deal, but like you can't trust people until they prove themselves to you to be trustworthy, basically.
Yeah, I've learned that over the years too, because like a lot of people, they'll tell you one thing, then they want to bump, and do other things.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because like at our like you're in your 30s too, right? It's like
Hmm.
what like that's obviously I knew that. Like I grew up in the hood also, right? Like I know you can't trust people. At the same time, I think because I love people. Like inherently, I think people are good. So I always give people a chance, but I think what I'm going to do this year is like I'm not giving people a chance unless they prove themselves to be worthy of a chance because it's just like a lot of fuckery out there and people, it's a human nature. Everybody's there for themselves. It's normal, but at the same time, I don't want to be the one on the other side of the you know, table. Like I don't want to feel like somebody fucked me over, basically, just because I'm a girl or whatever the case may be.
So, like, how do your process go with picking the artist who you want to pick?
So like I said earlier, some of the artists that I interviewed were not rappers. They simply resembled some of the characters from my book. So Crosby is a painter, or like this other guy, Ben Katz, is a painter. I recently interviewed a writer, but if you're asking about the rappers, my criteria is that I gotta fuck with your music. No matter how many, I don't care if you have 100 or 1 million followers. Hopefully, I'll interview someone who's got 1 million. um, I need to fuck with your music. And with two exceptions, everybody I interviewed is from New York City. Just because it was like a very specific way to hustle in New York City. I feel like New York City hustlers or New York City hustlers. So, uh, I would say most important is the music. Like I need to fuck with it or else like why am I doing it? And that's not to say that those people I didn't pick who hollered at me their music was bad. Not at all. People are so talented. It's just like, it's a matter of preference. Like you said yourself, oh, you like Gucci, I like I don't know, Meek Mill or whatever. It's that type of shit.
So, who was your first podcast guest?
So that was Crosby, actually. Yeah, the guy I mentioned earlier, Crosby Clocks. And then the first four episodes were recorded on the same day. So I had Crosby, a visual artist, then I had Trap Spade, who is a producer and engineer from Brooklyn, whose studio I was recording at. And then there was Todd Montezi, who's a comedian, and the fourth person I interviewed was a this actor called Ronnie Almani. So yeah, the first four people were interviewed on the same day. I don't recommend doing that. Wanted to um I wanted to be smart about finances, and I figured, oh, once I book the stew for a number of hours, that way, I won't spend that much money. It was done. We made it happen, but at the same time it's just like really exhausting to do one after another, especially that it was like my first time ever. But it worked out in the end, so and that's what brought me to or opened the door of drill and trap in New York City. So yeah, it was cool.
You know what's crazy is that was a dope idea. Cause my first episode, I had one person, and how about they didn't show up?
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah.
another thing. That's another thing. What I'll say this though. People, it's so crazy, right? Like sometimes people will be late. So that can fuck up the whole plan. So let's say you've got two people lined up and someone runs late is running late. is gonna like this happened a few times to me, and then I had to shorten their interview. That's on them. um but in general, I think it's pretty disrespectful. You shouldn't, like, it's fine to be late 10-15 minutes, but like, it's money. Time is money, plus it's literal money when I pay for the studio time. So so that's why I would say, like, uh, it's good to have. I think having two is okay. I did this a few times that I lined up one after another, but more than that, it's just draining for you as an interviewer to do that, because it's like you got to be switched on, and you know yourself. To be honest, I'm really impressed that you have been doing like one a day. I don't know how you do it. You're a genius, I think.
It was hard. I ain't gonna lie, it was hard. That's why I had to cut it back to like 3 days a week this year. Like 7 days
That's
a week,
still a
man.
lot.
Granted, yeah, seven
That's
days a week, it's a lot, but doing three like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that's when, the episodes drop. But
mm,
it's like, like everybody got a story to tell. And it's either somebody gonna learn from it, get inspired from it, or get motivated by it. So why not have them come on my podcast and talk about it?
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm all about. I want to inspire youth and let kids know that, and it doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, who your parents were. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do once you put your mind into it, and no matter that you don't have money, and no matter that your parents were poor. I go from nothing, and I still managed to go to college and grad school and everything with no money. You can figure it out. If you really want to get something done, you can get it done. And I know that there's like levels of privilege and shit like that. I'm aware of the fact that I'm white, and that's my privilege. But at the same time, from like the financial standpoint, like, like I told you, I'm from, I don't know how to call it, hood, I guess. But like, I still managed to get out of there and do what I want. I moved to London by myself, then moved to New York by myself. Wasn't easy. I fucked up many times, but I'm doing what I've always wanted to do, because my dream was to be a writer, and that podcast is like facilitating that even further. So yeah, I want to let kids know, like, you can do it. You can fucking do it.
You can. So like when you moved from London, you say you moved by yourself. What did your family think about that?
I mean, like I said, I left home when I was like 17/18, around that age, and moved to a different country. So I was very young. Um, so when I was moving from London to New York, I mean, they were not, I guess it's so far away, right? Like from Europe. But they knew they couldn't tell me nothing because I've always been so independent, and never asked for shit. So just did my own thing. So, you know they couldn't really. My mom was definitely not very happy, and she's still like, she's fine, but the problem is that you just don't see your family very often, and sometimes I feel guilty that, like, I can't be there to help more. But at the same time, I think we gotta do what we gotta do to survive, and we gotta do what we gotta do to pursue our dreams. So that's that.
Who was your most interesting guest and why?
That's a tough one, because people who come on my podcast are so amazing. They're so talented, and I just really love rappers, because I feel like like, you have to be so talented to be a rapper. Like, I sound like a broken record, but I always say, like, comedians and rappers are like the smartest people, because you gotta, like, write this shit on a spot sometimes, or like, just the delivery, and you have to sort of interact with the audience, and I don't know, it seems really impressive to me. So, favorite guest, or what was the question? The most interesting, did you say?
Hmm.
Let me think about it for 1 second. um I think, okay, one of the most interesting guests is this guy from New York named Love Train. He goes by Love Train, and I met him, or I saw him on the streets of downtown New York all the time. He's like, he wears this sort of like a uniform, either red or white, has a bandana over his head, and he carries this gigantic boombox, and he walks around the city with a gigantic boombox and plays house music. And he's not a musician himself. He's not even a DJ, but he's like a curator or facilitator of vibes. And I think that's such a positive, beautiful thing to do. And it started, I think, right around the pandemic, or when the city was completely empty. And I just think it's really positive. He inspires people. Like, people sometimes follow him, and he walks around, and um he just seems like, I mean, a lot of artists are pure in a way, and they're hard, but like, just no agenda. Like, I don't want to be famous. I just want to bring joy to people. And I think that's really beautiful and just unique. You don't see that much. And the type of music that he listens to, I definitely like as well. Um, it's different than rap, but it's more like, house, electronic, techno, perhaps a little bit, dance music. So it's like very positive vibes. So I'd say like maybe Love Train is or was one of my most interesting guests, but that's not to say that there were not other interesting guests. So I apologize to all my guests. You're all really interesting.
So being that you're in New York, I gotta ask you, Cardi B or Nicki Minaj?
Nicki Minaj. I have to say Nicki Minaj because Cardi B has been wilding lately. Like, I don't know. The text messages between her and Offset. I don't know if you saw that online. Oh my God. I'm just like, oh, gross. Like, it's too much. I don't understand why she has to post that shit. It's so like, ew. It's not classy. I think Nicki Minaj is like much classier. She's like a classy, brilliant queen. Cardi B will never be a queen. She is dope, and I admire her and I respect her. She was a dancer slash stripper before she became a rapper, and I never ever undermine anybody's hustle, would never judge her for that. But she's just like, she doesn't have the same like aura of a goddess as like Nicki or other artists, in my humble opinion. But shout out to Cardi. I hope you figured out this shit with Offset, girl.
An artist named Mo Dub on your
Ah,
podcast, man.
yeah. Yeah. So you met him too? Did you interview him also?
Not yet.
Not yet.
He on, yeah, he on the way though. We done talked, we chopped it up, man. He was going out of the country. We
Right.
was supposed to shoot, but yeah, I saw he was on your podcast though. He pretty dope, man. His song called "Same Heart."
Same Hard was, I think still is a total hit. Um Most definitely that was like my top banger of the summer. I created a playlist of like Duchess summer playlist, and it was on my playlist. And no, it's a hit. I really wish nothing but the best for Mo Dub. He's a great artist, and he works really hard. This motherfucker has been going to shows and showcases, performing for years, like day in and day out. And most rappers don't have that sort of, or most people in general, they don't have that sort of discipline, except for Larry, who does podcasts like every day. But it's very rare to do this. And what I learned from him, and which I tell my artists, because I manage a rapper now, is that he would go to showcases and perform with the same energy and dedication, regardless if there was one person in the fucking audience or 100 people in the audience. And that's the attitude that people should have. And no matter if it's like a little task that seems unimportant, like washing dishes, or whether it's like a serious, serious project, you got to do it to the best of your ability. It's hard, but yeah, I respect the shit out of Modub. He's doing great, and yeah. Actually, the day I interviewed him, he was opening for Trey Songz, believe it or not, that night. Yeah,
That's dope. That's
that's
dope.
dope, right? Yeah, super cool.
So if people want to follow your podcast, how could they do that?
People can find me on YouTube. I only have YouTube podcasts for now, and there is a reason for it, which I'm not gonna get into, but it's video. I feel like into like we were talking about earlier, like in today's world, like people's attention span is so short that we need to like make our podcast episodes not longer than like 30-40 minutes, like you said. But also I think visual is important. Like people look, like not listen as much in my opinion. So that's why it's both. um and yeah, please follow Duchess and her Dukes on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, Duchess and her Dukes as well. And yeah, please buy my book when it's out.
Carla, if somebody has want to start a podcast, what advice would you give them?
Take your time. Don't be me. Don't rush. And maybe curate your guests better, or rather, that sounds bad because that makes may sound like I didn't curate my guests. Like all the guests that I interviewed were incredible. And I'm so grateful, but I think I think picking and maybe like strategizing who you want to interview um is a good piece of advice. Also, another one, don't spend money, because I fucked up and I, hired videographers and then someone who edited the podcast. You can do it yourself. And I just blew so much money in 2024 on that, and I don't regret it because it's a learning lesson, It's like an investment and then you learn. But that's something I wish I had known before. There's a great app for editing videos called CapCut, that I'm sure you may have heard about. It's really easy. You can edit on your phone. So yeah, don't spend. If somebody tells you they're gonna charge 250 to record an hour podcast, come to me. I'll hook you up, because this is bullshit. And I did that. And I spent money that I shouldn't have spent. But it's okay. Like I said, it's a learning lesson. So I wish I had known that, and that's my advice. Um, and just have fun with it. It's supposed to be fun at the end of the day. It's not. Uh, it shouldn't be stressful. So
Well, Carla, I appreciate you for coming to Chill and Vibe. But before we go, let everybody know what we doing.
we're chilling and vibing. What's up?
Hey, appreciate you, Carla.
I appreciate you too, Larry. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope your podcast blows up.
Thank you.
Thank you.